And joining me now to dissect President Trump's economic policies is Michael Greiner. He's an associate professor of management at the Oakland University School of Business Administration. Michael, great having you. Which factors drive the current rebound in the U.S. economy, and how sustainable do you see it is?
Well, I mean, the U.S. economy was doing great coming out of the last administration. Basically what had happened is we'd had a big stumble with the COVID recession, of course, and after that, essentially, the economy was moving along quite well. You know, people talked about how the U.S. economy was the envy of the world, and basically what we've seen happen since then is that despite the fact that the economy is doing well, we've seen essentially this administration decide that it's going to impose tariffs and do things with immigration that actually go right to the core of what are some of the strengths of this country, which are trade and the country's immigration. And my concern is that we've essentially created our own crisis here, where had we just kind of let things continue, the economy would have been doing great.
And how are the Trump administration's tariff policies impacting overall economic growth and its perspectives?
Well, right now it's hard to tell. You know, a lot of it's speculation, but there is evidence to support the fact that tariffs are both driving inflation and also reducing hiring. And that's really what the big concern is here, is that by reducing hiring, essentially you're kind of pushing the United States into a recession. Now, it's worth noting here that the United States was before the tariffs went into effect, was adding jobs at a robust pace. It was really very impressive. And the fact that suddenly we found that we are essentially not adding jobs based on the last couple of jobs reports, and we're expecting another next week, really indicates that the economy is softening, and businesses really are kind of holding their powder dry because they're concerned about the long-term viability of their markets.
And not only talking about labor markets, but I'd like to talk about mass consumption, consumer confidence. I'd like to better understand how you see consumer confidence plays a role in the economy.
Well, you know, we always say that economics is largely psychology, and that there's a lot of truth to that, because basically if the public feels that they do not, that their position at their jobs is not secure, then they're basically going to pull back on their spending. And so that's really, I think, what we're starting to see. You know, the irony here is that we saw, for example, a very good report from Walmart. Well, that should not be surprising, considering the fact that Walmart tends to be a low-cost provider. So essentially what we're seeing is people pulling back from some of the higher-cost retailers, like Target, for example, which has been struggling lately, and instead spending their money at Walmart, where they're finding cheaper prices. So we're starting to see the American consumer really pulling back, and that's a big problem because, of course, 70% of the U.S. economy is driven by the consumers.
Michael, I'd like to get your take on which policy changes could strengthen the economy and straighten out all the different problems that we're now carrying.
Well, the irony is, I would like to see us basically go back to the way things were before this administration decided to stick its hand into things. You know, again, the economy was growing at a very robust pace. You know, people complain about immigration, but the truth of the matter is, even where we had immigration, we were still enjoying very low unemployment, indicating the fact that actually the immigrants were adding to the workforce and adding to the economy rather than taking away. And that's one of the things that is really something that economists have been saying for quite some time now. So I would like to see us back off from some of this aggressive enforcement that we're seeing with immigration, and see us back off from some of the tariffs, because I think that that's really weighing down on the consumer right now.
Michael Greiner, thank you for your time and insights.